Welcome to our webinar series, Future-Proof Your Commerce with a Modern Commerce Architecture. Some practical tasks before we start. Your microphone will be turned off throughout the webinar. Feel free to ask questions. Use the question panel. We will answer questions at the end of the session. You will also be able to access the recording from this webinar afterwards. So let's start. And we are the ones presenting today. I'm Dan Anderson, and I'm responsible for our strategy team and service development at Columbus. And with me, I have my colleague.
Hi, I'm Christopher, and I work as the head of architects here at Columbus Commerce. And this is the second webinar in our webinar series around the topic modern commerce. Last time we talked about how technology and higher customer expectations has changed the game plan and why it's important to be agile.
And the agenda topics for today is grow as you go, how you can grow with your architecture, data for everyone, how to handle data for speed and scaling, convincing your CTO, a little bit of a role play with some questions and answers, and what's challenging about this.
Yeah, let's start by quickly summarizing what we talked about in the webinar a few weeks ago. We looked at how traditional e-commerce platforms are built as monoliths, as one big box containing a lot of features. You're limited to its technical platform when it comes to replacing capabilities. The fact that it all sits together makes it hard to scale out and to get good performance. It also makes it hard to release, and therefore it's not done very often. So a traditional e-commerce platform is holding you back when it comes to experimentation and innovation. Taking off the head can be a step in the right direction, since separating the user interface from the business capabilities makes it possible to release the user interface independently. Now it's much easier to experiment in the customer-facing part of the solution. And when the head is off, now it's also possible to use business capabilities outside the monolith. Whether you re-platform or gradually break the monolith up into smaller pieces, when you have smaller autonomous components that are individually deployed and scaled, it's possible to experiment and innovate everywhere in the solution.
So if you are in a situation where you have to be more flexible, you need more speed, your business demands are increasing, you have to be able to pivot quickly. Then Composable Commerce and MACH technologies are becoming the go-to options for building scalable solutions. So let's start with the first topic of today, grow as you go. Guiding you through a potential journey from a tech stack perspective, a tech stack supporting your expectations on creating experiences, value, and growth. A composable commerce architecture built up on APIs, cloud, headless, microservice give you the freedom to grow as you go, meaning start small and then the possibility to grow. So, but the question is, so how do we start our journey towards this? In this special case, we start from zero, so it becomes easy for you to understand and follow. Later, we will also discuss how you could move from a monolith or from where you are today. So a first generation or a new version of a commerce solution is probably an MVP where you start small, targeting specific customer group, specific customer journey, specific devices, starting with delivering the business capabilities that delivers most value with the least effort. And typically this includes one customer front end built for important users and channels, in this case, an e-commerce solution. Basic business components for starting online sales, and that is probably like a commerce functionality, payment, and a CMS. And also integrations and data from most important systems through an integration and data platform. And that could be like integration to ERP and PIM, for example.
So instead of having an e-commerce monolith serving all the functionality and the whole experience, we want clear separation. The dark blue business capabilities will each supply parts of the functionality to the API layer, but without a channel-specific user interface. To support a specific customer journey, you then create purpose-built applications on top of these business capabilities, the orange layer in this image. For example, an e-commerce application, and you can either build your own web application from scratch, or you could start with a bodiless e-commerce front-end framework to get started quickly. Such an e-commerce focused front-end framework will help you with a component library with components such as a search box, a mini cart, and a product card. It also has a set of front-end services that support features like searching or adding to cart. And since, for instance, a search API will be slightly different depending on which search provider you use, you would use different extensions to connect to these different providers. And there is nothing stopping you from building this front-end application from scratch, but this helps in getting things up to basic functionality quicker.
Which capabilities you need certainly depends on your customer needs and expectations. Here we use like traditional UX methods and processes to facilitate and find out how the different components in the solution should work together to produce the desired user experience. We use customer insights, customer journeys, design systems, along with the possibilities in the front-end frameworks that give us the tools needed to work with modular design and reusable front-end components. And those building blocks are there for us to focus even more on the overall customer experience. Customer first is a term that I like, and that tells quite a bit about how we look at the user, customer, employee as a center when we work on modern commerce projects.
Yeah, customer first. Yeah, that is one approach you can take when designing your solution. When the desired user experience is understood, this can then guide you in what business capabilities are needed to provide that user experience. Like whether search results should be personalized or not. That will put different requirements on the provider of the search capability. It is, however, important that these business capabilities are designed to be reusable in multiple channels, since customers would expect a consistent search experience, whether they're using an iPhone app or a web browser.
That was maybe a first step, but then at a certain stage, your customers are changing, our business models are changing, we get more business requirements. We then need to expand the landscape with more experiences, supporting with more user types, channels, touch points, adding more purpose-built apps like maybe a customer portal on the same framework, using the same APIs, increasing the usage and value of the underlying system. Then we may also need to add more business capabilities, add small specialized services within the solutions such as personalization or external search engines or other customized functions that your specific customer needs. And a clear separation will also help you with the issue of having legacy systems that often doesn't have the maturity to deliver their services according to expectations, for example, real-time data. In these cases, we can use custom microservices and APIs to abstracting them and compensate for the shortcomings of the legacy system. We are adding what we're doing then, we are adding modern technology above the legacy systems, meaning there's no need to wait for an upgrade or change of an ERP if that is the case. Other custom services can also be added to create unique services by combining capabilities of several underlying systems. And by getting all the information from the same source, the API catalog, you will be able to deliver a true seamless customer experience in all touchpoints.
Yeah, and with a growing set of APIs, the introduction of an API catalog comes in handy. It's not strictly necessary when you start, but it makes your life easier when the number of APIs grow. And if you use something like an API management service, you not only get the API discoverability, but you also get things like security, access control, setting request limits, and more. And with this, it is easy to make business capabilities available to other front ends as well, without changing the business capabilities themselves. So over time, the solution is evolving into a flexible, customer-centric commerce architecture. At some point, new systems are introduced. Some systems will be replaced, and there will of course be challenges with that. But these changes should not directly affect the customer experience. So the APIs of the business capabilities, they remain stable, which means the API layer is not affecting the front ends when the PIM is replaced. Instead, you can continue to evolve the user experience and add features, support more touch points. So with the flexibility you get from a decoupled architecture like this, with a modular UI with reusable components, a modular API-driven backend, scalability, serverless computing, enterprise-grade SaaS offerings built on MACH principles.
And the architecture enables strategies as faster and easier innovation by this decoupled front-end capabilities, overall better customer experience, ability to constantly change and improve, reduce business risk, and a longer life for the solution as grow as you go possibility enables. But Christopher, I'm a little bit curious about all the colors. We have orange colors, we have blue boxes. What could those boxes be in the real life?
Bearing in mind that there are lots of options out there, here's an example of how we can assemble a modern commerce solution. An e-commerce front could be built on Vue Storefront, which is a JavaScript-based front-end framework built on Vue with e-commerce in mind. So it has a component library, it has e-commerce functionality, and several connectors to backends. It also includes caching and server-side rendering to improve performance. You could use Commerce Tools as the commerce engine. It comes with a lot of commerce functionality, which you access through its APIs. And it's built on the MACH principles, so you can scale horizontally per individual feature, and it's done automatically. And Storyblock, that's an example of a CMS for content creation, but it can also be used as a site builder, where you can define components and page templates. So these three would form a great starting point for your modern commerce adventures, since Vue Storefront connectors are available for both Commerce Tools and Storyblock. And Storyblock also has out-of-the-box connectivity with Commerce Tools, which makes it easy to show a few relevant products on a content page. And to make sure customers can pay, we could use something like Adyen, which is also supported in Vue Storefront. And although Commerce Tools gives you product search capabilities with a flip of a switch, perhaps an evolution of your search service could be that users should get personalized search results. Then you could move to using something like Clevo, or you could do so with a relatively small effort. And with that, we have an e-commerce solution.
This can also be a perfect architecture for you with really large ambitions and a global perspective. Just an example. I don't know if you know about Danone. Danone operates in 120 markets, and that they have the markets with different needs. Needs depend on Danone's presence on that market structure, market size. From a global perspective, Danone have to offer each market a solution regarding to their needs. And Danone has recently launched a scalable and flexible architecture, very similar to our talk in the last chapter here. And the game for Danone is that they are now actually, they have an ability to grow faster as markets now are able to start with the last market finished with a new head instead of starting from scratch, but because before countries built more or less of their own technical stack. They also have the ability to share local functionality as they are built. As they are building everything as small Lego bricks, meaning microservices. If Germany is building something, UK can reuse that Lego brick, and that is a huge reducing cost of innovation. At the same time, the global core can be updated with core services and increase the base level. For example, adding a more powerful search possibility, for example. In short, a global solution with a local agility. And that actually ends the chapter about grow as you go. For all front-end applications, we also need a lot of data. For example, if you are a B2B company and are planning for a lot more of self-service possibilities for your customers, then you have to consume data from a lot of backend systems. It could be ERP, CRM, fleet management, and more. It could be much more dependent on your needs and your customer, how you want to serve your customers. And to be able to create services and present them in one user-friendly app, meaning the customer portal, you may also want to use the same data. You may also want to use the same data in other apps. So the data has to be ready for scaling. As stated in former chapter, we add APIs to make data available. Pull the data out of the system of records and the producers of data and make it available for all custom build apps. And we try to avoid all those silo integrations.
Yeah, because a problem in legacy systems is that the data is often trapped in silos. So for e-commerce to correctly show information about a product, we need information from different sources. We need product images and specifications from a PIM. We need inventory data from a warehouse management system and some price data from an ERP. Now, if the e-commerce application will ask for this data just as the customer visits a product details page, the response will be slow. And to get around that, point-to-point integrations are often created, making sure the e-commerce platform has the information it needs when it's requested. But then, if we want similar information about the product, let's say for exporting it to a marketplace sales channel or to a price comparison site, we create yet another point-to-point integration. So this creates unnecessary dependencies that stifle the creativity and the flexibility of the solution. So showing product information to a customer should not be a hassle, and the data and experience should be consistent across channels. So what if you would pull data out of the systems of record and put it in the cloud? Well, then you can combine data from different sources and create a unified data model that fits your business. As you replace point-to-point integrations with integrations to and from the unified data model, this gives you a more stable environment. So if you switch from one PIM to another, you will only have to integrate the new PIM with a unified data model. Other parts of the solution can remain unchanged. And if we're adding APIs on top of this data, it will now make it more available. And since these APIs interact with a unified data model, you also relieve the legacy systems from heavy load.
And this is very much our recommendation, making data available for everybody. As without this approach, it becomes very hard to create speed and certainly scale as you grow. So how are you thinking as a CTO regarding this? And let's do this section as a question and answer session. Let's say I'm the curious and a little bit maybe negative CTO in the beginning. Asking questions to you, Christopher, and you are the smart, wise guy. So let's start with an easy one. We have touched upon it already. What's the target group for composable MACH architectures? Can't be for us with all our legacy.
Well, if you have a lot of legacy that prevents you from being agile, the more reason to do something. So if you have systems that won't let you get to its data easily through APIs, it is for sure harder to innovate. So there is something you can focus on, making sure you can get data in and out of the system, perhaps with a file-based integration if that's what you can do. Store the data in the cloud and then make it available to other parties through an API catalog. And now you have abstracted away the legacy system. So it's not a huge step to take, but it's an important one.
Okay, let's take another one. Is it just a new thing? There will always be a next new thing.
Well, yeah, composable commerce might be a modern way of thinking, but it's built on things that has been around for quite some time. So the term headless is new, but separating the presentation layer from the business logic, that is something that has been done for decades. A service-oriented architecture, which offered interoperability and reusability, that was defined in the late 90s. And the concept of microservices, that has been around since 2005 or something. So as these things have evolved, technology has evolved, and we now have very competent cloud platforms, it is now much easier to create a composable architecture using these things that we had for quite some time.
So, Christopher, does this mean that this will work forever? Is it future-proof?
Well, yeah, technology is moving really fast. It's always hard to know when to take the step to a new technology. When service-oriented architecture came around with SOAP web services, we thought that this technology would live long, but it turned out that implementing web services, that was quite a complicated thing. And the interoperability, it was not always there. So it's understandable that there is some level of cautiousness here. But REST APIs, it's kind of the de facto standard now, and it's easy to understand. It's easy to build things on it. It's easy to consume these APIs. So for the time being, I would say APIs are a safe bet when it comes to building interaction with your services, and it's probably something that will be around for decades to come.
It sounds great, but we don't want to scrap everything and start all over again.
No, we don't like those long projects over several years. We try to replace everything, so you probably shouldn't do that. But instead, you could introduce composable architecture in a part of your solution. Something not too big, but enough to show that it works and that it's not a huge step to take. Something like moving the search, for instance, out of the monolith, freeing it from the monolith, but still it needs to be integrated since it needs data to index. So it's a small step, but you could maybe expand it, expand the sort of composable architecture test with personalization and CMS to make it even more relevant. And to reduce the risk of doing this, if you're on different markets, for instance, maybe you could do it one market at a time. So you choose one market first, like the way Danone introduces changes, and then you go from there. When the benefits of composable have been proven, and you see that they were not huge changes, you could expand them this to other markets. And you can move more out of the monolith, such as the e-commerce parts. So now you should really start to see the benefits of composable. And with the acceptance of composable architecture, you can gradually move more and more out of the monolith whenever a pain is encountered in it. So it's a process that can take time, and you might not get rid of the monolith completely, but you will have created flexibility where it's needed.
But if we don't have the knowledge, not enough digital mature, how should we do?
Well, you still need to survive among the e-commerce competition out there, and the increasing customer demand. It's something that's hard to avoid. So to be able to fly, either you invest in becoming more digitally mature, or you need to partner up with someone that knows digital commerce and the technology, because you can't ignore this.
It is more of an IT thing, correct? It sounds like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to escape IT since we use IT everywhere these days. But it should not be, I mean, IT should only be there to support the business. So the technology is more an enabler that gives you the flexibility you need to support your business strategies. So even if the technology is new to you, it is a lot simpler to get started with these days compared to, say, SOAP web services. So you pick the business components, you pick a front end, and you connect them through simple, straightforward APIs. And if you use SaaS services and off-the-shelf connectors, it's perhaps even less of an IT thing, since there is less hosting and things like that to worry about.
Okay, I get it, but could I outsource this?
Yeah, outsourcing, it's important to create an engaging experience for the customers. So, I mean, brands are selling direct to consumer now. And if you want to compete, you have to stand out. You have to give the customer a reason to choose you over them. So you, as retailers, you need to innovate to be in business. And to innovate, you need to know the business. So I would say that, well, I wouldn't say outsource these things. It's better to have a good partner then, so you can evolve the business together, to combine your knowledge and evolve together.
So if I do, I see risk everywhere. What's your view of it?
Yeah, there's always a risk. I mean, since change is the only constant in this world, there is also a risk in not doing anything. So status quo is not the answer. It's probably much better to place your bet on making changes. Changes that enable your business to adapt faster. And sure, there is a risk that you don't get it right on the first try, but there's also a chance that you become more competitive on the market and generate more business. So it's a risk you should be willing to take.
Thank you, Christopher, for your excellent answers. So as a final part of this webinar, time flies very fast. A very short section about challenges with this approach.
Yeah, there are some challenges when moving to a composable commerce, such as knowing where to start. I mean, although it's possible to modernize in iterations, it can still be tricky to decide where in the solution to start. And it's usually good to find some pain points in the solution and work from there. And this is something we as a partner can help with in discussions and workshops with you. It's also hard to select the right business capabilities and vendors, or it can feel hard at least. There is a lot to choose from out there, and the fear of choosing something wrong can make it hard to come to a decision. And this is also something a partner could help with based on their previous experience and market knowledge. And using services from multiple vendors, that's common in a composable architecture. And more vendors means more people to talk to, more agreements to sign, more invoices. But this should be manageable though, since businesses they often have already a couple of or more third-party vendors to integrate with or interact with, sorry. And when it comes to services, there is more of them in the composable setup. So more services means there are more things that can break. So you need good practices when it comes to things like documentation, automating things like releases and things like that, monitoring. So something to think about for sure, but something that should be possible. And a composable setup tends to have more integrations than a monolith, since functionality now lives in separate applications. So this is, however, mitigated some by using off-the-shelf connectors between applications, such as between View Storefront and Commerce tools. And a positive consequence of these integrations is that data is not locked into a silo anymore, which gives you more flexibility. So, I mean, even though there are challenges, they are not showstoppers in any way. So then a question for you. Now we have talked about several different things regarding how to future-proof your commerce. We talked about one challenge being where to start. So where do you start, and how can we at Columbus help you with that?
Good question. It depends on how far you have come, but of course we can help you with the different parts depending on where you are on your journey. You may already have ongoing thoughts about what you need to do, but have difficulty getting started. Maybe you need help outlining a way how you should move towards a more flexible and scalable architecture, or you may find it difficult to convince the management team or other stakeholders in the organization. But we also know that there are many who do not know where to start and need help understanding the first steps. Therefore, we have made an offer to you who participants in this webinar. We offer you a tailored seminar. This type of inspiration seminar or webinar is usually good for creating a common understanding of the challenges, being inspired by what others have done, and starting the internal discussion about where to start yourself. This is something we normally charge for, but for you, we have 5 webinars to give away at no extra cost. If you're interested in this, you should reply on an email you will receive after this webinar, and we will make sure to put together something that suits you. The 5 first to return the email are the winners.
Great, Dan. Can you try to summarize then what we have talked about in some practical recommendations, what to consider in order to work actively with the change?
In this webinar, or actually 2 webinars, we've talked very much about the importance of your technology foundation. That you think platform architecture that allows you to scale, change, and doing that with speed. And we also talked about the control over the data, make it available. You should also think big so you are able to grow and not outgrowing your platform when you don't want. We have also touched upon the ability to adapt, have a confidence to change. You should be organized to be flexible, meaning try to move to a more flexible strategy and organization. Be innovative, be able to pivot quickly. And your mentality should be like test, fail, and learn, and go, go, go. But this has to go in hand with becoming true customer-centric, understand the customer goals, their needs and obstacles, to understand what you need to do in what order. You should also think more growth and value-created activities and master how you do this throughout the full customer journey. And then certainly secure your digital capabilities, recruit and secure competence at both strategic, tactical, and operational level, and certainly also ensure ownership and support at management level. I think that's it, our 5 guiding principles. Christopher, with that, I think we have some time for questions.
Yes.
So
Great.
I will see here if we have any questions in the question panel. I have one here, Christopher. You were talking about some components like view, etc. Could you give some more, I believe, more examples?
Yeah. So Vue or Vue Storefront. Vue Storefront is a storefront or storefront framework built on the JavaScript framework Vue. So that is one example. If you're more into React, for instance, which is another JavaScript-based framework, there is something called Next.js Commerce. It's not as mature as Vue Storefront, but it's getting there. So there is that, and there is another one called React Storefront. I think I don't have any experience with that, and also it doesn't have to be a JavaScript-based one. You could actually do this in Java or .NET as well if you want, but I don't know if there are any as mature as Vue Storefront there either. And I mean, for Storyblock as the CMS or site builder, you could use something like Contentful or any other CMS out there. And search, there is a whole sea of search vendors like Algolia and Loop 54. So that's the whole point of it, that you should be able to sort of pick and choose whatever fits you. But maybe sort of the glue that glues it all together, maybe that's the one you should focus on more. Maybe that is where we have right now more of a recommendation around Vue Storefront, but there are alternatives.
Okay, great. I have another question here. Grow as you go, and I think maybe we have talked a little bit about this question, but maybe we shall repeat. The question is, grow as you go. How to identify where we shall start?
Yeah, and yeah, that depends a lot from company to company. So that's why it's usually good to sit down with the customer with the business to talk about if they have some pain points in their journey. I mean, maybe there is something that they feel this is stopping us from doing what we want. Here is where we lack flexibility, and that it can depend a lot between companies. So that's where we as a partner then would, we could offer help in the form of workshops and things like that. And then we have the seminars that you mentioned. We could have a digital advisor sitting together with the customer through this project as well. So we have a few options there to help you, to guide you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions. So with that, after this webinar, you will receive an email. You will be able to look at this webinar again. But also remember the free possibility to get this inspirational seminar webinar, the 5 first to reply on the email. And with that, I actually think that we are saying thank you for listening. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.